Jordan and I work for Mishon Mackay Lettings, and I'm here today just to have a conversation with you guys with regards to the rental reform bill that has recently been announced and what changes are likely to happen and how that might affect the market. So the rental reform has been introduced to provide some clarity more than anything. I think our current structure, our current laws surrounding lettings and law is really kind of fragmented and doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So it is being applied to give tenants a little bit more security, to provide a concrete, upholdable process for landlords, to make them a bit more accountable. Is basically where it's no longer a fixed term. So currently, when you start a tenancy, it might be for 12, 18 months, maybe 6 months, and that is both ways. That contract, unless there's a break clause, is fixed for both the landlord and the tenant. Whereas what they're proposing now is to abolish that completely and just offer a periodic tenancy, which is month by month from the offset, so no more fixed term contracts. With that in mind, they have clarified that 2 months notice would be required from the tenant, whereas currently on a periodic tenancy it's only 1 month, and a landlord can also give 2 months notice, but from month 6. So there is flexibility both ways on that. So really good question. The section 21 as we know it is going to be no more basically. That's what they've proposed. Which I know in the first instance does sound quite scary, but rest assured for landlords, they are looking at strengthening the existing Section 8 notice to give more mandatory grounds for possession, for eviction. So Section 21 is going to be gone, and Section 8 will be strengthened. So one thing I found really interesting actually was what the landlord has to provide the tenant in order to successfully serve a Section 21 currently, such as a valid gas safety, a valid EICR, EPC, etc, etc. They're now saying that the Section 8 notice, the landlord won't have to provide proof that he has issued those documents to the tenant. The only thing that he would need to provide is that the deposit has been successfully protected. Now that doesn't mean that you don't have to do those certificates, it just means that you don't have to serve them. And that does also include the How to Rent guide. So this essentially is to predominantly protect tenants. It's to ensure that they have a suitable property to reside in, that is safe, that is warm. But in addition to that, it's also to create some form of adjudication, basically, mediation where relationships fracture, where you've got one party that is failing to communicate. There will be a little bit more responsibility on both landlord and tenant to adhere to some kind of mediation before it goes to court, for example, and that's essentially what everyone's trying to avoid to happen. But yeah, mainly it's to do with mediation and to ensure that properties are habitable. The rental reform was released in June of this year, and it's all part of the levelling up scheme that the government have proposed. I don't think we're necessarily in a consultation period. I'm pretty confident that what they have put on paper will come to fruition, but they have got until March to kind of finalise it and to concrete it. It's really important to note that although we don't have an absolute date in our diary that all of this is going to come into practice, they have stated that particularly the periodic tenancies, the Section 8s and the Section 21s will be done in a 2-part implementation. So obviously any new tenancies will form under Step 1, any existing tenancies fall into Step 2, which will be 12 months after whatever the date of Step 1. We totally appreciate that this is probably the biggest change in legislation that's happened in the lettings market for, I don't know, a decade, maybe 2. So we just want to offer some reassurance that we are here, that we're available to answer any questions that you might have. We will continue to update you along the way. So much more to talk about, and I'm willing to have those conversations with all of our clients to make sure that they're not worried. There's lots of really positive changes for landlords and for tenants.